Happy New Year and welcome to the first episode of Fuel for Thought for 2025. And boy, I can't wait to get going. Scott Squires, pleased to be joined, as always, by the energy insider and, well, political insider as well, Dan McTagg. And Dan, Happy New Year to you.
And Happy New Year to you, Scott, as well as to our viewers, listeners. It's going to be a great year ahead. A lot to talk about, a lot of things happening in Canada. And finally, Canadians are realizing that affordability, which you and I have been talking about for several years, actually makes sense and is probably the most important issue in this country. And we can do a lot about it this year, thankfully.
Yeah, lots to get into here in just a little bit, but let's start off 2025 with a look at where gas prices, diesel prices, basically energy prices are for consumers from coast to coast. Dan, what are we looking at as we start
Well,
2025?
yeah, Scott, they're going to go up a bit. We've seen prices go up a little bit over Christmas, but we're going to see a little bit more, especially on the diesel side. Things are getting cold. Natural gas supplies are down, not just because of what's in Europe, but of course, diesel, which also just doesn't just make transportation fuel, it's also used as heating oil. It's also used as jet fuel. So this time of year, with this cold snap, probably the coldest we've seen in 2 years. Mother Nature's coming back. Climate's becoming extraordinarily real again. We're getting cold weather, and that means that the diesel will be up about 4 cents a liter right across much of Atlantic Canada. Doesn't matter what province. And of course, gasoline, which has sort of been tiptoeing upwards, up and down a little bit, but it's probably up about 2.5, 3 cents a liter this week. So best thing is if you get a chance, gas up before the increases take place, because we've seen those same increases right across Canada.
What are we going to see in terms of home heating fuel, Dan? We're getting into the depths of it now, January, February. Anything shocking on the horizon there?
Well, what's shocking is this week could be that 4 cent increase. We may get a little bit of reprieve next week, but the week after we have another cold snap coming in. So I'm looking at another 4 cents. So it could be 8 cents a liter between now and the end of January. So, if you can fill up, do it now because it's only going to get more expensive January and February, especially since, our heating we may have to get another refill every month or 2 months or so. So that means that if you want to save on 500 liters, you want to save 8 cents. That's going to save you 40, $50 by taking the advice that, you and I are talking about, and that's to fill up today. Get your order in early on. So of course, you've got a locked in price, especially when it comes to heating oil. So volatile as it is, it's going to continue to rise. And, as I said, climate is back. We're getting a cold winter. And that's likely an effect, and I don't want to get too far into it. The Hunga Tunga volcano, the eruption we had 2 years ago, had a lot to do with making things a little warmer. There was a lot of moisture that was put in the atmosphere. That is now dissipated, and we're now getting back to real temperatures, real summer temperatures, real winter temperatures, real fall and spring temps.
Dan, that's the energy insider part of what we like to talk about. Now let's kind of pivot into the political insider. For those who may not know, you've been a long time political involved person, an 18-year member of parliament for the Liberal Party once upon a time. And my goodness, Dan, what a lot has happened over the last few weeks since we last spoke. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, has announced his resignation after basically being in hiding for a couple of weeks. Lots out there, Dan, but as best you can, what's the Coles Notes version of where we are, what's going on, and what you see coming over the next few weeks and months, both from a Liberal leadership standpoint and a federal election standpoint?
Death twitches from the Liberal Party. This is it. It's over. Trudeau has read the room properly, been told by his caucus to get the heck out. He has to get out. But they're going to take their time, their sweet time getting out, because they now know that all three parties, finally the NDP has found a spine, but also maybe a little bit of cunningness on their behalf, knowing, of course, Trudeau would prorogue. They wouldn't have to worry about going to an election, at least for the next 75, 76 days. But the Liberals have to pick a new leader. In that time, there's going to be a lot of jockeying, mostly from people who are currently well-known insiders who have been really juicing Trudeau's agenda. So no change. And I think that party is going to be for a sad disappointment. There may have been some residual support because, some Canadians are pretty lightheaded and they like the socks, the sobbing, the selfies, and the suave hair. That's how they vote. Who constituency I'm referring to, but the other ones don't have much of a profile. He wouldn't allow them to have a profile. Those who do, well, bring it on. I'm hoping it's Mark Carney, because I had lots of dope on Mark Carney. So does everybody else. This man has been really responsible for the policies that have brought Canadians to their knees and has driven up on affordability in this country by denying our energy sector from being able to sell products to the rest of the world, to strengthen the Canadian dollar and to get Canadian jobs and to get Canadian revenue back into Canadian pockets. All these things are the result of Mr. Carney's wish list, and that's to see that both he and his wife, who are part of the Eurasia Group, continue to hammer away at this idea that somehow a molecule called CO2 is bad. They are part of the climate alarmists that have brought nothing but catastrophe to Canada, and we are finding ourselves in that situation now. You've got a $62 billion deficit. That's going on top of the debts that we've accumulated over the years, some $1.3 trillion. We're not going to be able to sustain this very long unless Canada does what some of the premiers, like Danielle Smith in particular, have been able to do, and that's to say we've got to find a way to get our energy to markets, regardless of the rhetoric between the two countries. The reality, I think, is hitting hard on Canadians who have been denying this for the past few years. They're good on grifting. Oh, give me a couple of things here. Frankly, they're mooches. Unlike previous generations of Canadians who work hard, these people expect something from the government, and the government's giving them nothing but a pittance. Here, maybe another plate of porridge or something, another bowl of porridge. Please, sir, may I have more? Thinking of Oliver Twist from years ago, but it's really a sad situation that the absolute ignorance and guile of Liberal members of Parliament and those socialists on the left are now saying, hey, maybe it wasn't such a smart thing that we went left wing. Maybe we shouldn't have been so trendy. Now it's deathbed repentance, but as I said, it's a dead cat bounce for the Liberal Party. They're done. They're finished. They're likely not going to be coming back for several terms. And you can thank not just Justin Trudeau, but the cast of characters who want to replace him for driving the country into the ground. And as a result, putting us in a very vulnerable position just a couple of weeks before President Trump comes in as president and starts hitting Canada economically, because he knows they're not just politically weak, we're economically weak because we've allowed left-wing politicians, NDP, Green Liberals, to stop our energy from getting to the rest of the world. If we had 2 or 3 pipelines built, we could basically thumb our nose at the Americans and then President Trump say, you don't want our oil, we'll sell it to someone else.
Dan, what would you say to Canadians? And first, let me preface it by saying, look, we live in a country where you can follow whatever political party you want and vote for whatever political party you want. That's one of the beautiful things about living in this country. But what would you say to Liberal supporters right now who feel that by Justin Trudeau stepping aside and by bringing in a new leader, whoever that will be, whether it's Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, or whomever, what do you say to those Liberal supporters who now feel that, oh, well, it's going to be a different Liberal Party. It'll be all different now. We can go back to supporting the Liberal Party that we've loved. The person who was polarizing, Justin Trudeau, is now gone. New leader, new Liberal Party. Let me go back and support the Liberals. What do you say to them?
You've supported mediocrity in 3 elections. You've supported corruption in 3 elections. You've supported reckless government in 3 elections. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You like more of the country declining? Then by all means, help yourself. But remember something. The cupboards are bare. The kitty's empty. You've spent the next generation's wealth. You're not going to get any more grift. There ain't no more welfare coming. There isn't any more corporate welfare coming. There is no more ability to help you. Our social programs are in trouble. Our financial situation is in a mess. Our country is economically in a very vulnerable position. Don't take my word for it. It takes 144, 145 pennies to buy a US dollar. As I've mentioned in the past few years, it has enormous consequences. When you advocate climate policies, which are actually driving up inflation, driving up the cost of food, heating, housing, transportation, no wonder we all feel the way we have. I'm not making an appeal to Liberals because I think some of them are, frankly, they're really not Liberals from my generation, which is to find balance in the right center, as we did with Paul Martin, Jean Chrétien, prior to that with Lester Pearson. I would say to most Liberals, you've had your cake, you ate it, and the rest of us are now starving. It's time for you to back off. Whether you're Green, Liberal, or NDP, it's time for you to go. Your policies have ruined the country, and no one has the right to do that to this great nation or put it in a position where you have a U.S. Incoming president saying, hey, be part of us. We don't want to be part of the Americans, but we've created a vulnerability in this country because everybody in this country has recognized we've become mooches and we do not want to do the things we did in the past. We are a progressive, we are a strong, productive country. We should not have allowed ourselves to be painted in this corner. Your voting for the Liberal Party did that. And I think if anything else, maybe there should be a supply of new brown paper bags for former Liberal supporters to put on their heads. They brought this about by voting for people who are very weak, very reckless, very corrupt, very naive, very ideological, and very cunning. It's nice to say that you want to find some new savior. No, we don't need any more of your saviors. You've done enough to damage the country. Time to step aside and let someone else fix it.
And you mentioned the incoming president in the US, Donald Trump. And there's no question that he's been going to his playbook, the art of the deal. We know he's bombastic. He comes out with outrageous to many statements and talking about policies that a lot of people just go, oh, that's frightening. And there's been a lot of people, and look, even Mr. Polyev has come out and said, Canada will never be the 51st state. So there's a lot of people who feel that they've needed to respond to a lot of the bombastic things and somewhat outrageous things that the incoming president has said. I put out a statement the other day or something on my social media, and again, this is just my opinion, but what I said was, I feel that if Canada had stronger leadership the last several years and was in a much stronger position, that the incoming president may not be able to make these statements, or perhaps we wouldn't be as triggered. It's because of the policies and where we are, and we're being basically seen as weak, for lack of a better term, on the international stage, that Donald Trump has decided to take shots at us. He feels like, well, Canada's a mess. I'm gonna be the schoolyard bully and pick on the little kid. Again, that was just my take. If we had a stronger internal leadership, we wouldn't have to worry as much about external forces. That's my opinion. What are your thoughts, Dan, on this whole Donald Trump picking on Canada thing?
A month ago, I wrote an article in Canadians for Affordable Energy, and I said, Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau are playing checkers with Trump and the incoming administration. Danielle Smith is playing chess, and she's winning. She's basically told the Americans, you can't live without our oil, and we want to send you more oil, and we're going to find a way to get more of it, regardless of the green obstructionists and the stupid Supreme Court of Canada that came out with a decision that isn't binding in any way, shape, or form. What we're going to do is we're going to find a way to get more energy to you. And that's a language Mr. Trump and the American people cannot ignore. The Americans produce 13 million barrels a day, but they consume 20. They need Canada's 4.2 million barrels and more to make ends meet, especially if it's heavy oil, the stuff you make diesel and jet fuel. You can't run transportation, you can't run your agriculture, your mining, your forestry, much less your military on gasoline, light, tight fuel. Anybody can do that. It's great, makes for great fuel, can't make for this kind of stuff, which creates the diesel on which the world economy and the US economy are based. So like it or not, I think we have to follow the wisdom for now in the footsteps of Danielle Smith, and that's to remind the Americans that they need us as much as we need them. And of course, let's let the games be played by Mr. Trump. Let's play him at his own game, but let's make sure that we have an absolute majority for a new government that has no time for nonsense. I know one of the media scrum came out yesterday to Mr. Trump and said, Mr. Polyev is not going to support your nonsense about us becoming a 51st state. And he got a little upset at that. You could see he was getting upset. I think we need a strong leader with a strong mandate. And Canadians, get your freaking head out of the sand and stop voting for weak, effete, corrupt, reckless weaklings, ideologically based people who are not liberals, but in fact are socialists. We don't need socialism. It's falling apart around the world. What we need is a strong, decisive, center-based Canadian leader, and that can only happen with the election of Pierre Poilievre. There is no other choice. Like it or not, maybe he doesn't have the nice hair. Maybe he doesn't have the nice selfies. Maybe he doesn't have the nice socks. But grow up, get over yourselves, and stand up for Canada for once by voting the right way and admonishing that yourself for making big mistakes over the past few years.
And Dan, we'll wrap up with you here in a second. And look, anything can happen, right? Trying to write a script as to how the next few months may go with the Liberal leadership and non-confidence votes and all of that. Who knows where it may go? But I will ask you, with your experience being in the halls of Parliament for 18 years as an MP, plus all of your other association in the political realm, what's your best guess as to what we're going to see over the next few months in terms of a Liberal leadership and eventually an election call?
Yeah, we're going to see a new leadership with a new leader. The election call will be for the 5th of May or the 8th of May, somewhere around there, just before Victoria Day long weekend. We're going to have to see the Parliament brought back by the 24th. The prorogation, by the way, I think is unconstitutional, but that I'll leave for the pointier heads to make that argument. Two things are going to happen. We have to pass a financial bill, or the country's economy finances will come to a crushing slowdown or stop. We also have the carbon tax going up on April 1st. Again, congratulations, leftover that echo people who voted Liberal, NDP, and Green. But between now and May the 5th, the country is basically on hold. And that's because we have a prime minister who won't leave, wants to give his successors what little time they can, they can do to build their own, hanging platform, because they're going to lose the election. It doesn't matter who it is. They can jiggle and they can dance all they want. They're going to lose, and they have to be prepared to put on the best face on this. But we have an election May 5th, a new government, which will call Parliament back. They will sit through the summer. They'll start to sift through these things, deal with all the scandals, all the problems. But the first thing is first, establishing a strong government with a new cabinet, with a new mandate, to get the country's back on the right road again, and to get it off the position it's been on for some time, which is a downward spiral.
The government's mandate with the election is they don't have to call an election until the fall. Does anything change with having to have an election now, with Mr. Trudeau stepping aside and a new leader coming in? Is there any way that a new leader could potentially look at, hey, let's push the election to the max so that we can kind of reestablish ourselves and get people used to who we are? Any thoughts on that?
Well, was the NDP going to lie again? Is Jagmeet Singh going to BS people about the fact that he's torn up the agreement and then goes and votes 8 times for the Liberals after that? No. I mean, the NDP really has to be concerned. That the question for the NDP is, do they want to be the third party, or do they want to continue being the fourth party, or even the fifth party? I don't know how it's going to work out. For the NDP, they have to be clear on this. Parliament comes back on the 24th of March. There's a vote of non-confidence 3 days later. So the 27th, the government falls. So the 28th of March, we have a 37-day election. That takes us to May 5th. There's a new government, and hopefully one in which the Conservatives have more than 200 seats, one in which the entire combined opposition has less than 100 seats, which makes it absolutely clear that whatever decision the Conservatives make is in fact the law of the land, supported by the acid test of the public support. And there'd be no equivocation from that. The gnashing of teeth and the grinding of teeth will have to end. You've had 10 years to ruin the country. You're going to have to give someone at least 4 to 8 years to fix it. They're going to fix what you broke. And so step aside, Clyde, and let them do their job.
And quickly here, just got a couple minutes left, Dan. I've seen a lot of posting about a number of bills that were before Parliament that are now basically going to die because of this prorogation and this leadership. Can you give any clarification on what happens there?
Yeah, every single bill that was before the House, doesn't matter what stage it was in, first, second, third, or almost, if it hadn't passed and received royal assent, it's dead. They have to start all over again. So things like, going after Canadians on capital gains, things like the policy on media, digital media that are trying to censor, that's gone too. So all of this is now going to be hit in a reset. It'll be up to the next government to make a decision as to how it wants to proceed.
Never a dull moment. So glad to be back with you for another year. 2025 is upon us, and I have a feeling that we're going to have lots to talk about in the coming weeks and months. Happy New Year to you, to your mom, to all your family, and let's do this again next week.
Let's do that, Scott. Looking forward to it, my friend. Thank you.
All the best. Thanks, Dan.